We've made sports way too important in terms of travel sports. If you're going to play basketball, you got to play 12 months out of the year, and you got to travel all over the country to play. You can't play multiple sports because you can't be great at any one of them. I am Kurt Warner, and I am coached to win.
My next guest is Kurt Warner, and I don't know if there's another athlete whose life has been more documented than Kurt Warner. Books, movies, you name it. You see the name Kurt Warner, I think most people understand what his football life has been about, from how tough it was at the beginning to where it is now. The interview was really fun. We got to talk about his football journey, the coaches that made an impact on his life, and how important it is for him to share that wisdom, not only to his other kids, but other athletes that he mentors and coaches. So let's get right into the coaching points, okay? Here's the first one. We don't know what we don't know. I know it seems pretty obvious, but bear with me. It's a little bit more detailed than that. Why it's important to see every coach in a different light, and what's the biggest challenge for kids today playing sports. This is a good one. You don't want to miss it. Here's Kurt Warner. So thanks for coming on, man. Last second.
Yeah, no problem.
This has been great.
My pleasure.
So, I mean, listen, like we don't do X's and O's here. That's not really what I'm interested in. The first thing that stands out to me is a couple things. One, Kurt as the dad of sons who play sports. But I want to start with this quote from your 2017 Hall of Fame speech. And I feel like I should put this up on my wall because it's exactly the way I feel about some of the coaches I have. And you said, no great accomplishment is ever achieved by yourself. To be successful is contingent on others. Can you explain that to me?
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing that we loved about our sports is that they weren't individual sports. They were team sports. And I think the other thing that I loved about football was, unlike playing baseball where maybe I can pitch and hit, or I can play in the outfield and I can hit as well, or in basketball, I get to play offense and defense. We don't get that luxury. You know, for us, we got to play one side. And so we had to depend on the other side to do their job. In our sport, right, everybody couldn't, kick the ball or shoot the ball or whatever it was. My job was to throw it. Somebody's job was to block. Somebody's job was to catch. Everybody had different roles. And so I love the aspect of football that it's the ultimate team game, that it takes everybody to win. And, you've got a couple Super Bowl trophies back there. Mm-hmm. I think back to my Super Bowl win with the Rams. Is what I love so much about it is I got the ball with 2 minutes to go. And I always dreamed in my front yard that I was going to have that last minute drive and I would throw the touchdown pass with 2 seconds on the clock and we would win the Super Bowl. Yeah. Well, I got to throw the touchdown pass, but I threw it with 2 minutes to go in the game. And so now my defense had to go out and they had to do their job. And in my Super Bowl, Mike Jones makes the tackle on the 1 foot line to get us the win. Yeah. And how beautiful was that? Because to me, it was a microcosm of life. It was a microcosm of what football was all about. And the idea that life and football is a team sport, that we can't do this on our own, right? I tweeted last week that we don't know what we don't know. And I know that seems like a, obvious statement. But my point was simply, we don't learn anything until somebody teaches us. We don't learn anything until an experience teaches us something. And so sometimes we don't know until we know, until somebody comes along. And I love that so much about my coaches along the way, which really, kind of speaks to what I was talking about in my Hall of Fame speech, was that there were so many coaches that taught me things along the way. And a number of different coaches that taught me different elements. And it was those different elements mixed together that made me who I was and allowed me to have the success that I had. And so, that to me is so much of what life is all about, is stepping back and being able to learn from other people and learn from moments and be willing to challenge where we are and who we are and allow other people to coach us and to teach us so we can continue to ascend and become the best version of ourselves.
Hold on. Before we go any farther, make sure you click that subscribe button real quick and turn on your notifications. All right, here we go. Back to the show. You know what, as a dad, and I know you're the two sons that I know about, Cade, who was at Nebraska, then he was at Kansas State, then he had a shot with the Tampa Bay Bucks. EJ, who was at Temple, now he's at Rice, playing at Rice. Right. The one thing I think that I feel, I guess, at this point in time for my own kids, and I have 3 of them right now, all playing 3 different sports in college, is I just hope that at some point in time, they build a real significant relationship with one of their coaches that lasts a lifetime. And I'd be really bummed out if it didn't happen, because I know how important it is. And of course, you know how important it is. What have you seen that situation be like with your own kids?
I take a little different approach. Like, I think, if they can have that, you're exactly right. Like, if they can have a lifelong relationship with a coach and one of their mentors, awesome, and more power to them. I've kind of got that with Dick Vermeil. And, I love catching up with him, and I love talking to him, and he's always, sending me things and encouraging me and watching things that I do, kind of like a father figure. Still doing it. So I love that. But then I've also had a lot of other great coaches that I don't necessarily have that same relationship with, but I had great relationships with them through the moments that I was with them. And that's probably what I want for my sons more than anything else, or really all my kids in whatever situation they're in, is I want them to enjoy the moment that they have with their coaches. I want them to be around people that can help them get better, whether that's as men or even on the football field, because, there were some coaches I was around that made me a better man, and I appreciated that. There were other coaches that may not have been in that same vein, but they made me a better player. They made me smarter. They helped me to grow and become better in my field, and better, in terms of chasing what I wanted to chase. And I appreciate them both the same. We're going to be around all kinds of different people and different coaches in life. But if you can appreciate and enjoy the moments you have with those coaches for whatever reason, you can appreciate them because they're making you better at your craft, right? It's okay for a football coach to be a football coach. That's okay with me. Like, if you're going to be a coach and you're going to teach me and you're going to take me under your wing and you're going to show me, and so I can get better and I can improve, like, I'll take that every day of the week, even if we don't go out to dinner together, even if we don't become buddies, and then vice versa. I love coaches that, and again, I won't say I necessarily love a coach that couldn't make me better on the field, because I felt like that was their primary role, but I'll use Dick Vermeil. Like, Dick Vermeil was more of the head coach. He wasn't as involved in the every down nuance of playing the position, but he was more this father figure and teaching us and encouraging us and helping shape who we were in different moments. And I loved that part too. Like, oh my gosh, how great is this to have somebody that's helping me grow as a leader every day for my team. But that's what I hope for my kids, is I hope every coach that they're with, they can gain something from them and appreciate that relationship because of one of those different factors. Because I just think there's so much value, as you said, in the time that you spend with the people that you spend the most time with. You want to make sure that the relationship is fruitful in one way or another.
So even you're talking about Dick Vermeil, notoriously tough, a notorious hard ass, like from college to Philly. And when people, he confuses me sometimes, because outwardly he's so emotional, he's caring, yet he is tough as nails. How did you kind of manage that? How did you balance that? The hard ass tough, you got to do this. No excuses, to the guy that is loving and nurturing, that has built a relationship that you so cherish.
Well, here's one thing that I always felt was very important with my coaches, and especially the tough coaches, is I tried to see them in every light. And so what I mean by that is, a lot of coaches have a certain persona in between the lines, right? They have a certain way that they're going to
game day persona. That you talking about that?
Yeah, I mean, game day, but just any time as they're coaching football, like, these are our rules and this is how we're going to do it, and we're going to practice harder than other people. But then go look at that coach with their wife. Go see that coach with their grandkids. and see who they are as a person beyond just as a coach. And so the unfortunate thing with Dick Vermeil is I got to see actually two sides of Dick Vermeil. My first year there in 98, before I was a starter, he was kind of running the show. And so that was Camp Vermeil, 2 3-hour practices, physically demanding. Our guys on Sundays were complaining that they were worn out because it was too tough physically. Then in 99, we brought in Mike Martz and we kind of changed the way we did things. And, Dick kind of took his foot off the gas and said, okay, I'm going to delegate to other people. And then I got to see Dick as more the overseer and the head coach and the guy that would encourage us and lift us up, because his job was no longer to set the tone and be the physical guy and set up the practices. Now I saw him in a different light. So now I got to see both perspectives of who he was. Tom Coughlin, another guy I was with 1 year in New York, and he was known for the Coughlin rules and Coughlin time. And this is Camp Coughlin. This is how we're going to do it. And then I would go up, and I'd be the first one there in the mornings or the last one there in the evenings. And I would pop into his office and we'd have conversations. And I'm like, this is not the guy that's coaching us. In other words, I understand there's two sides to this guy. And it's important for me to know and see both sides and be able to understand the roles of both of his personalities. I got to see him with his grandkids, and playing grandpa. And I'm like, I love this dude. Like, this is, but being able to see both sides helped me to find that balance that you're talking about of going, great man, tough coach, but I understand the roles that both of them play and why they need to play both of those roles, or why they feel they need to play both of those roles. And it helped me to see the complete person instead of just one side. I don't really like this side. I don't like the discipline. I don't like the hard practices. But then I see the other side and I'm like, I see, he's making a conscious decision that he thinks we need to be more physical. He thinks we need to be more disciplined. That's what's going to help us succeed. So that's how he's going to coach, even though that's not the only side of him or the only part of him, that's in there.
Yeah, it was always weird for me when I would see a coach outside of the facility. It was really awkward. It was like, hey, how you doing? It was like that whole interaction was always odd to me. Like seeing Holmgren at one point in time at a Christmas party. I'm like, who's this guy? That's not the guy I know. Like, I don't trust this guy at all. Belichick, same thing. Usually one way or the other. There's never the only head coach I ever sat down with during lunch. Because everybody breaks, everybody goes to the lunchroom, they eat, they hang out. The only guy I ever sat down next to me and we just started chatting like normal people was John Fox. It's the only guy. Yep. I thought I was like, this is great. Like he was comfortable engaging me as a human, which I thought I didn't even know how to act, or I'm not even lying. I was like, should I be honest with him on my opinion of the show that's on, or should I just say what I think he wants to say? I was only there for a year, but he was one of my favorite coaches just because of that one little 5-minute interaction that I had that just has lasted for me since I left. I don't know, years ago, 2006 or 7, whatever the heck it was.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, allows you to just have a different perspective of these coaches and see them as people beyond just the coach. And I think that's important. And I think it's important the other side is for coaches to see us as people and to understand we're human and to understand we have emotions on top of trying to get the best out of us as a football player.
Is it a must though? Is it a must? Can you coach without having any personal relationship? What if I don't at some point in time, there's going to be a player who hates the coach and the coach hates the player, yet they still have to coexist. What happens when that happens?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you have to like every one of your coaches, but I do think you have to respect your coaches. If they're going to get the best out of you, if they're going to be able to push you, if you're going to be accountable to them, if it's going to be a good working relationship, you've got to respect your coach. So whatever that means, but I do think a big part of that, just like you said with John Fox, is that it wasn't a long conversation, but the fact that he sat down next to you and was willing to go, okay, tell me about you. What do you like? What are you doing? Like, not asking you, hey, why didn't you block the 7 technique like this? Or why didn't you, run this? like, it's okay to be able to go, hey, I understand you're human, right? I'm human too. Like we're people. Like at the end of the day, it's football. At the end of the day, I want to win. I want to help you be great. I get it. But at the end of the day, we're people. And this is a relationship business, and life is about relationships. And so I don't know if it's essential, but I do think it's important. Like when I coached high school football, that was really important to me to get to know the guys and to have fun with the guys and to get input from the guys and to know that, to have them know that I was in this for them, not just for me. And so I think that's where the relationship becomes so important. Is it's easy to see when you get beyond the lines that, oh my gosh, this guy really wants what's best for me. Like he really is interested in me as a human being and not just what I can do for him in terms of winning football games. I think that's really, really important, even though you don't have to be best friends, even though you don't have to be buddies, you don't have to go out and have lunch every Thursday together with your head coach. That stuff doesn't have to be the case. But I do think understanding that they're personally invested in you, a coach is personally invested in a player is extremely important.
Yeah. Just to kind of go through your list, start at Northern Iowa, Terry Allen. Is it John George with the Arena League? Did I have that right?
I'm John Gregory.
John Gregory, that's right. Okay, yeah. Then Dick Vermeil, Mike Martz, Tom Coughlin, Denny Green, and Ken Wisenhut. Do you think that you're a microcosm of all those guys wrapped up into one? Do you think you took a little piece of each one of those guys?
Yeah,
or you think Dick Vermeil is probably the biggest influence on your life?
As a coach, Dick was probably, the biggest influence just for me as a man. But yeah, I think all of them shaped me in different ways and had an impact on me and, gave me experiences that would help me both on and off the football field, and it wasn't just my head coaches, Todd Haley, who's my offense coordinator with Arizona, was a huge influence on me. And, we had a great relationship and it was fun to work together. And, the respect that he gave me as a player and allowing me to have input in what we did and, feel like it was a collaboration. I mean, so many of those things have shaped, me, in other team sports I'm involved in. And so what I mean by team sports, that could be my family, right? Different things I learned from those coaches that I now apply to, being kind of a coach in my own family and how I work with my kids and how I, teach my kids and how we build relationships. And so, I think those things, as I mentioned, when I was a coach for players, I took things from all of those coaches and would try to apply it. And so as a coach, I felt like I was a piece of all of those guys as I was trying to apply different things to the players that I had. My hope is that I have kind of the same kind of influence or have an influence on those people, whether it's my kids or the players that I coached or the teammates that I have, in the different jobs that I'm a part of, or locker rooms that I'm in. And you like to think that you've had some kind of an influence on those individuals too, as they go on and as they shape their lives into who they want to be.
So, with your kids, so I know you wrote a book called The Rules of Being a Warner. Was that more about family atmosphere, or was that also part of how you wanted your kids to kind of interact and handle challenges, failures, obstacles? Is that what that book was about? Because I didn't have enough time to read it.
No. It's all good. It was really a fun book from a couple different standpoints. But it was funny because somebody came to us with the idea of, hey, you got 7 kids. We'd love to, kind of learn about your parenting style. Maybe the rules that you have in your house. And and I know we were there with a couple of our kids, and Brenda and I kind of looked at each other and we're like, I don't know. We don't really have that many rules. And our kids just looked at each other and they're like, what? Hold on. What about this and this and this? And so they started ripping off all these rules, so to speak, that we have in our house. And we're like, okay, I guess if you count that as a rule, you call that a rule. And so that's really where that book came from, was our kids kind of going, okay, these are the things that our parents have us do, and kind of become the rules of the Warners. And so to your point, yes, even though I never really thought of them as rules, so much of parenting is about how do I teach my kids the little things, right? How do I instill in them some of the values that were instilled in me with my parents or people that I was around when I was younger, and knowing that our kids are growing up in a completely different lifestyle than we had growing up. How do we instill those same values? So those same things are important to our kids growing up. And so, that's really kind of how that started. And then the other interesting thing was in that book, it goes chapter to chapter. And in each chapter, one chapter is my voice. And then the next chapter is my wife's voice. Yeah. And so we would go through different scenarios. And, I kind of knew what it was like for me and what the experience was and what it meant for me. And then I would read my wife's chapter and I'm like, really? You thought that? Like you were thinking that in that situation? Like I would have never known that. And so it was really great for our marriage too, to go, man, we could have two people in the exact same situation and see it completely differently. And so I think that's obviously the blessing in marriage, but also can be the challenge in marriage, is that, you could go through the exact same things and experience it completely differently and think about it completely differently and want to parent completely differently. And so the book was so much fun to write because it helped us take a step back and going, okay, why do we have these quote unquote rules? Why are we doing these things? Why is this our parenting style? And then for me to step back and go, and why is this my wife's parenting style? Why is it different than mine? And they both challenged me again to kind of think about who I wanted to be as a father and how I wanted to lead and what was most important to me in that relationship with my kids and that relationship with my wife. And so it was a really, really fun book to write. And it's a really fun book to read for couples, because again, you get both sides and, it's going to lead to challenging and conversations between spouses going, oh, did you see that? Like that's us in that situation. And it's great for dialogue to be able to really dive in and okay, kids, what were you thinking when we had you do this? What did it, instill in you, and what did you take from it? And how did you apply that to your life now? And then to do that as parents as well.
So your kids are in college, and I'm sure every day isn't great. What were some of the biggest obstacles or challenges for you to coach your own kids, especially when things didn't go right? Did you have a certain, philosophy? How did you create perspective for them so it wasn't always doom and gloom?
Yeah. I think it's always a challenge, because, when you're coaching your kids, the one thing that, at the end of the day is you want the best for your kids. Yeah. And so you want them to be the best. You want them to be the best version of themselves. You want to, even help them more than the other kids, because you're like, it's my kid. Like, do whatever I can to help them succeed. And so I think that's always a challenge, because sometimes you're holding them to a standard that's different than everybody else. And I don't know if that's always fair, to say, okay, I'm going to hold my kids to a different standard than I'm going to hold every other kid on the team just because they're my kids. So there was challenges in that. There were challenges in understanding the dynamic or the balance of being a coach and being a father.
Being a Hall of Fame coach who was a father. Sure. I'm assuming some coaches must have been intimidated when you rolled up to the game.
I still think there's coaches that are intimidated by it. But I kind of look at it the opposite way and go, because I wasn't here to ever point out that a coach wasn't. I appreciate all the coaches that my kids have had, and the fact that they're giving their time and their effort, and making the commitment to my kids on a daily basis. But I was always felt like I have something to offer. So I'm not like every other dad in that perspective. And maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. Maybe it's like, just be another dad. But, to me, it's like, well, but I can help you to be successful, and I can help my kids to be successful. And you have this resource. Why not tap into the resource? But yeah, I think there's always challenges in that, because you even want to have a little more say than the coaches probably want you to have. And I get that. So to me, it was always important early on in the process to go, I want you to know that I would love to help. Like I'm here and I love the game, and I would love to help coach you and teach you or give you some ideas or perspective on things. That's A. But B, I want to know that you're okay with it. So I would always ask that up front is I'm not going to run out here and tell you what to do, in game 3 because you haven't done it. I'm always going to ask you ahead of time, is it okay if I offer suggestions? Are you open to me sending you some ideas or coming out to a practice here or there and, and watching what you're doing and maybe giving you some feedback? Like, are you open to that? And, and I want you to be honest. Don't say yes if you're not. Like, if you say yes, then I'm going to do that because I think it can help everybody involved. So I'm going to do that, But if you don't want it, then please tell me no. Because then if I start giving you feedback and you don't want it, now it's just going to cause a tension between us that I don't want. And I didn't want from the beginning. And it's why I asked you in the beginning, do you want me to just be dad? Or would you like my expertise to help you and simply give you perspective on things or share ideas with you? Because I do think I have a unique perspective that nobody else has. And that's not to diminish what you're doing or to say you don't know what you're talking about, but simply to go, I think I have something to offer. If you're interested in it, tell me now. And if you say yes, know that I'm going to do this. Like, know that I'm invested in this. It's not something that you're going to ask, say, hey, help me. And then I'm not ever going to help you. And then I'm going to throw an idea out in week 8. Like, if you want help, the amount of time that I can give to help you and to help my kids succeed, I will give it to you. But it was always very important to me to be upfront with that, so that they knew I was willing to help, and B, that if they wanted my help, that I would commit to helping them in whatever way that I could.
What were you like? What are you like at games? Like, we're talking like Little League, AAU basketball, high school football. Are you sitting in a lawn chair yelling and screaming and cursing? Or do you feel like you have to be quiet and just, distant?
I don't yell and scream a whole lot, but I do have opinions.
While you're in the stands, are you giving your opinions while you're in the stands?
Like, I'm probably giving it to my wife. Like, I'm not one that's saying it really loud for other people to hear unless they ask me what my opinion is. But I do have my opinions because, again, I don't necessarily have my opinions on a defense. Like, oh, they shouldn't be doing this on defense or that, because I know that's not my expertise. But when it comes to play design and what you're trying to do and how you're asking a quarterback to read a play or, what you're trying to do on a play, I have my opinions because I believe I'm very smart from a football perspective. And I know, and again, I don't want to say I know what you should be doing. Like, there's only one way to do something, but I know what can make a game easier for a quarterback. I know what's important for a quarterback to allow that quarterback to be successful. And so my opinions often go down that path where it's like, man, that's a tough concept, or that's not a smart thing to do because it really makes it hard on the quarterback, or that technique there, if you do it a different way, it's going to help and make things easier. So I can't ever separate from that and just be dad and go, yay, good play, boo, bad play. Like, I can't. It's just, it's ingrained in me. It's who I am. It's how I think. I'm a football nut. I'm an enthusiast. I'm passionate about it. And I'm very detail oriented. So that is always going to be a part of my watching experience when it comes to watching football. When it comes to watching other sports, which was part of the beauty of having 7 kids, was I had a number of kids that did things I knew nothing about. Mm-hmm. So my opinions were simply, I don't know what to tell you to do. I enjoy watching you do it. I hope you have good coaches that can help you be better, but I just get to be dad and I'm going to cheer you on and think you're the best to ever do it because I don't know what I'm doing. So there's great blessings in both sides to help your kids with something you really know a lot about and to help them succeed and to help their coaches and them succeed and grow as well. But, great blessing in being in those situations where it's like, I know nothing. So, I hope you just swim really fast. Or I hope, your horse jumps over every jump and you don't knock anything down because I'm not going to be able to tell you what to do differently if you knock something down. And so those were fun moments too, where I could just be dad.
What do you think the biggest struggle for kids? What do you think the biggest hurdle for them is as kids now? Like, what do you think they're challenged with the most?
I mean, I think, like if we're talking about sports specifically,
just sports.
I think it's the fact that we've made sports way too important in terms of travel sports. If you're going to play basketball, you got to play 12 months out of the year, and you got to travel all over the country to play. You can't play multiple sports because you can't be great at any one of them. If you want a scholarship, you got to focus on one sport. You got to go to the best school so you can get a scholarship and you can win, as opposed to staying at your school and being around your buddies and playing ball, which was what I always wanted to do. I just wanted to play with my buddies. I wanted to play every sport. I wanted to go out there. I wanted to be with my buddies so we could laugh about the good times and we could have fun through the bad times, and we could go out to eat after the game, and we could just have our relationship. But now I just feel we've made sports way too serious, that you either got to be in it to win it, in it to be a pro, in it to get a scholarship, or you shouldn't be playing because there's no place for you in sport if you're just going to be the guy that wants to practice and just enjoys playing the game. So you want to be a part of the team, and you want to practice, and you want to be around the guys. And I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is that there's no middle ground anymore for these. It's like either don't play, and if you're playing, you better be all in, or you don't really have a chance, or it's not going to be any fun for you.
Yeah, we got to shut this down. But I was looking at that 1994 quarterback room of the Green Bay Packers, and I was just like, I don't know if there's a better group of Ty Detmer, Mark Brunell, Brett Favre, and you.
Yeah, it was.
And I thought Jim McMahon was in that group, but he was probably before that. He was a little earlier.
Yeah, I know they had the Magic Man. Makowski was there right before. I'm not sure when Jim was there. Was he before or after
he was
that? But
before.
Yeah, but we had a great room. Different characters, all talented in our own ways. Was able to learn and grow and glean some different things from all those guys. Still friends with all those guys to this day. Just a quality room to be in early on. To kind of see what the NFL was all about, kind of grow into it. Steve Mariucci, who works with me now, was our quarterback coach at the time. So he was in the room too, and just an unbelievable human being on top of it. So, I count myself very fortunate, even though I was only there for a short time, to be in that room with those guys and the things that I was able to kind of glean from them.